Guys, welcome to that new episode of the First Responder Playbook. I'm joined again by my great guest, Sergeant V. Sergeant V is out training in the wild south of America, and he is taking his time out of getting a little bit of rest to join us tonight. So thank you, Sergeant V.
Yeah. It's nice
And
to be
we
here again, and I'm not in the south of America. I'm in Mississippi. I'm not that lost yet.
uh, I we are here tonight to talk about servant leadership, which its definition is where the main goal is to enhance growth, well-being, and empowerment of individuals and communities, placing the needs of others before the leader's own. Sergeant V, this is something that I believe in wholeheartedly because too often in law enforcement and first responders in general, there is a me culture. Um, but as a leader, you kind of have to put your team before yourself. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And it can be a struggle, right? We all have that desire to hit that next achievement, hit that next goal, fulfill our own missions. That sometimes we forget that our fellow coworkers or our subordinates, they're actually the mission, they're the goal. Because if we can help them, we're going to do better as a team.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we really need to realize, especially as a profession, is that your partner to the left or the right of you is there to achieve a common goal and not a personal goal. So like it is very nice to go out there and catch criminals or catch people doing criminal acts. But are you doing it to promote yourself or are you doing it to serve your citizens? And that's what we really need to realize at the end of the day is we're here to serve the citizens of our town, city, tribe, whoever you may work for.
I like that. That's a good reality check. I've seen it plenty of times. Heck, I've probably been guilty of it a time or two, going out there, getting in the fun chases, hunting the warrants, or trying to get as many DUIs off the street as possible, or, trying to find as many drugs as possible because I want that recognition or that advancement it might get me for my next promotion that I was up for. But yeah, we oftentimes forget that we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it to help the community. We're doing it to make the streets safer, to hold those people accountable that have done those bad things. And so the community is safer in the long run. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I love being proactive and I love, even being competitive to catch criminals.
Mhm.
It's just you have to remember to do it for the right reasons and not just, hey, we're doing it to do it. Like, it's not okay to go out there and, you know, chase drugs or warrants to just promote yourself. And like I said, every person, you're right, every person's probably been guilty of it at some point. But we have to take a step back and slow down and say, are we doing this for the right reasons or are we doing this because it serves us? And we need to remember that we need to be doing it to serve others, not ourselves.
Yeah, I remember a time in my career where a supervisor had given me an assignment and I went back to my shift and I was very management based. It was early on in my leadership career. And that supervisor was very management based in the way he did things. And I had been struggling getting my shift to get motivated to go out there and, be productive. And he was very much the, all right, well, you just tell them this is the rules, this is the policy, and this is the quantity, the output that I want. Um, and, not knowing any better, not having any more training in leadership than I did, I went out there and took the same approach because to me, it motivated me that way because I'm a task oriented person. You lay out your goals, you lay out your objectives. I'm willing to jump and drive and hit those goals. That's a good challenge for me, but it didn't always work for everybody else. I had to eventually figure out what actually helped to motivate them and not what motivated me. That's that selflessness that we oftentimes forget is we need to do things that appeal to them so that they accomplish the mission on their terms because at the end of the day, the goal's the same, right? Doesn't matter how we get there, as long as we get there.
Yeah, for sure. So, in your opinion, how would you apply servant leadership in law enforcement?
Oh, it starts with knowing your guys and gals on the street with you, knowing your teammates, knowing your subordinates, okay? Knowing what their strengths and their weaknesses are. And the only way to figure that out is to get out there and work with them and then sit down and talk to them, get to know them, right? Figure out what it is that's driving them, where they're wanting to go, why they're wanting to go there, and then support them in those goals and in those missions. Not every police officer wants to be a detective. Not every police officer wants to be a supervisor. So, figuring out what it is that they want to accomplish and then being there and supporting them as best as you can so they can hit those goals. And sometimes they might come to you and they have a perception or an idea of where they want to be, but they're just not the right fit for that. So being able to coach and mentor them and help them see what their actual strengths and weaknesses are too, so that they can be the best possible officer for themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have to realize that, if you have a shift of five, there's four other different personalities besides your own out there that have varied interests. They might be different ages, they might come from different backgrounds, and no one is ever going to have the same desire to do the exact same thing at the exact same time. And even if you did have, five hard chargers, would you really make a good shift at that point? Because, if you're just out there hard charging, who's going to take the calls? So, you have to have a very good mix of that, and you have to be aware of that. So, I would agree with that. So, since you took what I was probably going to say on the first one, I'm going to have to come with the second one. Man, to me, servant leadership is being willing to do just as much as what your patrol people are doing when you're in a patrol supervisor's role. So if you're a sergeant or corporal, you're not above taking calls, making arrests, being seen in public, showing up to big things. Don't just show up to those homicides or whatever may occur. Like, be seen out of the office, make contact with citizens, and show your people that you can actually get out there and lead by example. I think a lot of times respect goes a long ways with that, because once you get that respect, people know you're out there doing it. You're going to catch a lot more, catch a lot less flack, and your shift's going to run out more smoothly.
Yeah, I like that. We just have to be careful that we're not showing up and just taking over the case and they're just there to support us. We should be there to support them, right? So while we are there to help make those arrests and we're all there as a team, it's not so that we get the credit, it's so that they get the credit. And so that may require taking a little bit slower approach and coaching and mentoring them through how to solve the case or work through to the solutions that need to be there so that they can walk away feeling like they accomplished something and learned something as well.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Mine, I guess I should clarify, was more, when you got somebody at the jail and you got somebody else on another domestic,
Mhm.
like, you don't hold a call until that guy gets down to the jail.
Oh, yeah.
Like, go shag that call, handle that. Um, More so, like, as needed, you take calls, not show up, take over. Because you're right. If you show up and take over your calls, are you really teaching them anything? Being a good leader, good mentor? No, not really. And then they're not learning anything. So what's the point of doing it other than you're getting your own self glory? And that just goes against servant leadership wholeheartedly. Um,
Absolutely.
Another thing that I really would like to touch on with servant leadership is that oftentimes when people get in administrative roles, they kind of lose touch with what's going on their shifts. So, let's just say your agency has four shifts. Well, obviously, you're going to see your day shift more because you're out during daytime hours. It would help with shift morale, which is knowing what's going on at the department. Make an appearance at roll call. or in the mornings, when the shift briefing happens for the shift exchange, make yourself seen at times so that way you can be in tune with what's actually going on, because you're going to hear a lot of fluff when people come to you and say, "Hey, everything's going great at the department. There's not one issue here." Well, 95% of the time, there's probably issues going on. They just don't want to tell you. The only way you're going to ever find out is actually showing up and making that effort to like be seen, like when it matters. So don't just be a office supervisor and stay in there 24/7. Get out and be seen at, different shift changes, if there's shift meetings going on, stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. Being out there with the team builds so much camaraderie and respect. But when you have that supervisor that you said, like, never comes out of their office, I wouldn't say it's a morale killer, but it definitely doesn't build the same sense of leadership and connection with the team. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you want to see law enforcement head towards in the next 5 years in regards to leadership?
oh, that's an interesting question. So, there's a lot of agencies that promote officers to leadership positions without ever giving their officers training until sometimes years after they've been promoted into that leadership position. I would like to see it mandatory for officers to get leadership training prior to being promoted into leadership, because leadership is a skill and it's a learned skill that takes time and practice to implement. And if they don't get the training beforehand, then they're getting a crash course when they get promoted. So I'd like to see more requirements to having that training prior to promotions.
Yeah, I can agree with that wholeheartedly. I really don't think that's too hard to implement. It's just a lot of agencies either want to save a few bucks or they don't want to send them until they're for sure they want to put them in that role. And I understand that to a point, but you're right. If you step in day one and you're not prepared, well, what happens if something happens day one and you're not prepared? So, yeah, I wholeheartedly can get on board with that.
What would you like to see in 5 years for leadership?
The implementation of survey feedbacks at your agency. And you see those a lot at bigger agencies right now, but I want them anonymous because I feel like you would get a more truer representation of people's feelings if they don't know who they came from. But I feel like they would be very effective at smaller sized agencies because people are more willing to put their time and effort, I think, into like being a part of the department at smaller agencies. At bigger agencies, you don't have as much of the camaraderie with the whole agency. It's more of, hey, like my whole squad, like we're tight, but I may not see anybody else. Smaller agencies, you're gonna see everybody. And like people get more invested in being, a small town police officer, in my opinion. Could be wrong. But I feel like those surveys would allow leadership to be able to know about things that are going on that people sometimes wouldn't tell necessarily.
Hmm.
Maybe new technology that's appearing that they think, hey, we could use, and just general feedback on like, hey, we might want to go to Fords instead of Chevys, or and that was actually one of my a big complaints at an agency that I had an interview at was was the type of vehicles they were using. And so like that matters to your people. If that matters to your people, then it should matter to you as a leader
Yeah,
because you're there.
they should definitely be driving Chevys.
Yeah. Because I mean, honestly, you're there to serve the citizens, but you're also there to serve your officers because you have to have a balance of both to have a workable relationship.
Mhm.
And so I think you just need to be, as a leader, open to new ways of feedback and ideas. I feel like that'd be a good way to get them out there.
I like that idea. I like that because sometimes we promote people and they might have looked like the best candidate, but then they don't make the right adjustments and they take different approaches and everything looks good on paper. But the truth is they're not really being selfless and they're not really leading their people. They're managing them. And it can be hard to tell the difference from, that office space above them as opposed to when you're down below them and actually working with them on the streets. So that'd be interesting feedback to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I really think that moving forward in law enforcement, kind of like we talked about previously with managing of the personalities, is that departments are going to have to realize that this generation of officer is not tied to one agency like they were in previous generations. And so they're going to have to get creative to keep retention up. And so whether that may be, fringe benefits like extra money for degrees or, certifications, picking up extra part of your health insurance or extra part of your pensions. Um, Agencies are going to have to be creative to keep your people because they're not tied to one agency for 25 years anymore, for the most part.
Yeah, I almost have a different perspective on that, honestly, because
And I'd like to hear it.
I
This
don't,
is a discussion.
yeah, I don't think officers leave the department. Officers lead or leave their leaders. So it's not about the benefits at all. The benefits may be worse somewhere else, but if the leadership there is better, they're going to go there. If the environment, if the camaraderie is better somewhere else, they're going to go to that place, whether the benefits are good or not, because that's what they want. They want the connection, they want the rapport, they want the emotional, personal benefits, not the physical benefits.
I could get behind that actually, because I know some people's done that.
Mhm. I've seen a lot
Yeah,
do it over the
yeah,
years.
yeah. Maybe I'm guilty of that. But you're right on that for sure. That poor leadership will run people off quicker than pretty much anything else. So as we wrap up, what's one thing that you are grateful for from your time in law enforcement?
Oh, I'm going to keep it on the leadership realm. I had an old sergeant. He was he was a great leader. I'd almost say he was a coach as opposed to a leader, and that's the great thing about coaches is coaches don't just lead or manage. Coaches inspire change. And that's what he did with me. He inspired me. He taught me things that no other sergeant or supervisor ever thought to teach. And it made me a better police officer for it. I knew uh, looking back on it, I didn't realize my own strengths and weaknesses, but he did. And some of the things he said and did helped with my strengths and weaknesses. So that's uh, that's what I'm thankful for.
I can get behind that. Um, I think I'll go with two because now I want to keep one on the top of the topic of the podcast too. You always have the good ideas. Um, I will say if my one for leadership purposes is always be fair as a leader and don't forget where you came from. I had a sergeant that I still to this day adore, and he was never a bush shaker. He probably studied a lot of policy in a dark corner somewhere, but when push came to shove and I needed somebody there with me, he was there every time. And if I did something that, wasn't up to policy or, maybe needed to be corrected a little bit, he would correct me, but he would do it respectfully.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of people that talked bad about him that never had actually worked with him. And then I actually worked with him, and I mean, to this day, he's good as gold. Um, So I would just remind people that people will remember leaders who are fair and, treat them with a little bit of respect at times. So that's my number one. But I will say my second one, that I'm grateful for in law enforcement, is the ability to solve crimes to help citizens out. Um, I A lot of guys hate it, but I love working property crimes because there's that tangible thing that you can get back to the citizen and say, look, we got your property back that you were, was stolen from you. And I love being able to get out there and actually do stuff to show that we want to help people. Um, and that was always my favorite thing. A lot of guys hate it because it's kind of slow paced and you got to put a lot of elbow work in, but there's nothing more rewarding in getting someone's stolen property back, in my opinion.
Those were good cases. So.
Yep. Well, Sergeant V, it's fun as always. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Go inspire some change.
Yep.